Hey, SMB Nation, back with Bob Coppage, one of the most vibrant people in the industry. Love our get-togethers.
Vibrant. Okay, we'll go with that.
All right. Hey, I'm coming to you today. Took a little vacation time just because Anchorage, Alaska. Let me tell you, it's colder than Austin, Texas. That's for darn sure. Don't leave the door open.
They both start with the letter A. How is that possible?
There we go. Um, hey, you and I were talking. We for a long time we couldn't go to events, and then we could go to events, and we'll talk later about maybe what's coming up in late 2021,
Right.
2022. We'll get to that. But you caught a window, and you went to two or three events. And I was able to go to one, Retail Now, which is the point of sale resellers. So, we're MSPs, but the same
Yeah.
person is over doing retail. Caught that in late July, felt safe about it, felt good. And then you just recently went to the show in the New York City area, IT by Design.
Now, technically, and apparently you can get in trouble with this, it was in Jersey City.
Okay.
Okay. But it was IT by Design, the Build IT conference.
Oh,
Did that
Build IT. Okay, that's the
right.
branding.
Yeah, and it was a great conference, and it was held during the week that they had that big storm over in New York. And literally I was on the banks of the river. I'm going to use my lack of geography knowledge horribly, uh, and literally looking at the New York skylight go dark. The power went out, which is
Wow.
really, yeah, that's a weird thing. And then there was all sorts of flooding and all that, and it ended up I was supposed to have a flight home on that Thursday at 7 o'clock in the morning. I instead ended up having to rent a car and drive back to Ohio, Northeast Ohio. And I got back home in Northeast Ohio about 4 o'clock Friday morning, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock Friday morning.
Man.
And I'm literally sitting there in the airport feeling very sorry for myself because, oh, boo hoo, I can't get home, blah blah blah. And then I'm sitting next to this person who's talking to another person, and one person's going, my home flooded, I don't have anywhere to live.
Yeah.
And the other one is talking about how they can't get to work because where they work flooded, they don't have a job. And I'm like, I'm trying to feel sorry for myself here, people, with these very, very small problems. And you guys have these huge problems, and you're making it very hard for me to feel pity for
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. So what was the nature of this show? I mean, was it primarily expo? Was it lecture? Was it lecture and expo?
It,
Help me understand what the show is.
Honestly, I went there because it looked interesting, and they had a party at the Statue of Liberty, which was really cool. But here's the way they approached it. They approached it with a concept of no selling. So in other words, all of the vendors that were there, and the vendors had the swag, they had the booths and all of that kind of fun stuff. But when they presented, they had an edict from the organizers, from the Audit by Design folks, where they said you can't sell your product. You have to add value to the attending MSPs, and that value can be a workflow, a best practice, some documentation, some things that don't necessarily, they may relate to the vertical or what your product works on, but it can't be about how to best use your product. And that set the tone, I thought, in a very unusual and cool way. And I will say there's about maybe 200, 250 folks, MSPs there. And they seemed, and I rarely use this term for describing MSPs that includes me, they seem to be more mature MSPs than normally. And
Oh,
what I
okay.
mean, and what I mean by that are MSPs who have it already figured out, some of their operations, some of their KPIs, what they do. So they're not, and I hate to say this because it almost sounds condescending to MSPs because we all started this way. So they weren't MSPs that were winging it and just trying to figure out that next big thing.
Yeah.
And that was cool. So not only were the webinars, shows where my mind's at. Not only were the seminars really engaging on the educational side, but the conversations that happen afterwards, which are usually the best part of every conference, as you well know, were even better because
Yeah.
of the quality of the attendees. It was a cool conference.
No, I get it. And just to for the listeners and yourself, here's where we've kind of played in that, spectrum is that, and going back to early SBS, but we were really good with the smaller new computer guys before they were called MSPs and computer gals.
Yeah.
And to your point, they were winging it and they were trying to figure it out. So think of us as the community college. We had, fairly large numbers back in the day. The magazine had 60,000 readers that we did with Microsoft, right? So we played the community college system. And then our relationship with some of the peer groups was more that was either, in my mind's eye, that was either undergrad or more importantly, grad school. It was like grad school for MSPs to go to HTG. And so that was the ecosystem back in the day, right? That we were kind of feeding the next level. And it sounds like that's where you're saying out, and I'll say it starts, but that's where this build IT kind of starts, right? You're saying is a pretty impressive group of MSPs. So I get it. I can line it up, man.
Yeah. And that's not to say from a future instance of the conference that someone who is earlier on that they would not get value from it.
Oh no, absolutely.
So
absolutely. Yeah, I saw great photos. I think I saw one or two of you. I saw your Facebook post. You were pretty active. Do you have a sense, and I mean this sincerely, but was it, like SureWeb does a conference, and by design, it's maybe 250 attendees. Then you have IT Nation with, I don't even know how many anymore, but how many attendees would 1,000 or 500, because it's still new times going to shows with the COVID.
I would be right now. I would say for this conference, I would say it was probably your 200 to 400.
Yeah.
And I have absolutely no idea where it truly was, but it was not what I would call, nor did it try to be. It was not the mega show like IT Nation or Dattocon or anything along those lines.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the future. Just last week, I memory, if it serves me right, I think it was Friday. It was like Friday at 4 p.m. or something Central. It's like, whoa, Dattocon, made a good decision. I support them. They made a tough decision, so they canceled the Seattle show. I was going to go, and talk to me. Were you going to speak at Dattocon? Were you going to go? I was going to see you?
First of all, I was going to speak there, but I am reasonably sure that is not the reason they canceled it. Okay, reasonably rounding up, sure. No, it's one where I'll be honest. When I first heard that Datto, and I support Datto for what they're doing. I think it was the right decision.
Yeah.
But I really thought they were going to catch grief on it.
On the cancellation?
Because they were canceling. I really thought, and maybe this is just my perception of the divided country and all of that kind of fun stuff. I just thought they were going to take a lot more grief. And from my perspective, again, kudos to my fellow MSPs, and I think to a certain degree, even the vendors. Just about everybody seems to line up in support of Datto, and this is one of those where, and I hate to speak well of Rob Ray because who doesn't, but I think Rob has led such a great team in terms of building up goodwill.
Yeah, he has
throughout this industry, whether you use Datto stuff or not. So this was a case where people looked at that and said, no, we're with you. We understand. We get it. That I think that Datto has built up a great reservoir of goodwill. And this is one of those circumstances where you do something that even to the people who say, I'd rather you not have made that decision, are going to say, well, you've always treated me good. I respect you and I will support you through this.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah. And SMB Nation is in the events business. I talk to people in different sectors of the economy in the events business, Bob, and I really do. And basically, we're all doing that. We're throwing up our hands, right? We've never gone through this, and especially this wave. And it's literally this. What do you do?
Yep. And it's interesting because I was actually looking, and I thought rather seriously at putting on a conference in Q4 specifically about MSPs developing co-managed IT practices.
Correct.
And started looking at places and dates and all of that, and it started smelling bad.
Yeah.
from the standpoint of how the world was moving and blah blah blah. And I am now glad that I decided not to go
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
that
Let it.
said, Dattocon is going virtual, and I think they're going to do everything they can to create, as I hate to say as good of, because that again
It's not.
sounds
Yeah.
negative, but I think they're going to still create a great event from a content standpoint. They probably will bring me back to speak, so it's not all good news, from your standpoint. But,
All right, I'm gonna make that the final word, my friend. We'll see you next time. Thanks, and I'm sorry I won't see you in Seattle. That would have been cool.
that would have been. Well, we'll catch each other soon.
All right, thank you.
Take care.